Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to calculate the area of a rectangle. So in grade 5 we introduced you to area, and basically what it is it's the number of identical objects needed to cover a surface. So we're covering a two-dimensional shape, we're covering some sort of surface. So think of it as like you're wanting to cover the floor here with tiles. So we're trying to cover it and we're wondering how much would it take to cover it. And usually in this class, we're going to use things like centimeters squared. So a centimeter squared is just a square shape that is 1 centimeter tall and 1 centimeter wide. So that's what we would consider 1 centimeter squared. If we're dealing with meters squared, it would be a shape that is 1 meter long by 1 meter wide, and it makes a square. So you can see it just depends. If we're talking about how much flooring would it take to cover the room that you're in, we're probably going to talk about it in meters squared. If we're talking about how much would it take to cover a little notepad, you would probably want to talk about it in terms of centimeters squared. It'd be a more appropriate unit. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at area today, in particular of that shape you're really familiar with called a rectangle. So I'm just going to get my blue pen out here. I'm going to just draw a rectangle. Keep it pretty simple. Okay, so here's my rectangle. It's not the perfect, I've got some wavy lines, but that's all right. And let's just count how wide is this rectangle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 wide. How much is it across? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can see it's 7 across. So the question is, how many of these squares would you need to cover this whole rectangle? So you can see pretty simply here, area is just counting up the squares. So in this case, we've got 7 across, another row of 7 is 14, another row is 21, 28. So the area of this shape is actually 28, and whatever our units are. If this was 4 centimeters and 7 centimeters, that would mean it would take 28 square centimeters. So we need 28 of those 1 by 1 centimeter squares to actually cover up that shape. Now, let's think about this. Can you come up with a rule for doing this? Your length and width were 7 and 4, and your answer was 28. What mathematical operation would give you 28 when your numbers were 4 and 7 to start with? And I'm thinking we're familiar enough with our multiplication tables to know that our width, I'm going to call this my width, and I'm going to call the 7 my length. So this is what we'll notice. So this works for a rectangle. Area is equal to just your width times your length. So this is going to be a really important thing. And this will be one of those things as you go through your schooling, you'll just have it memorized. Area equals length times width, or width times length. Doesn't matter the order. And you'll know that over and over again. So let's just skip to the next slide. And one thing that we'll do here is let's just make up some numbers here. So let's just say we've got a length of 5. And let's say we've got a width here of 8. So you can see it's about 5 meters tall, 8 meters across. Question is, how much area would this be? And you can see now, if we go back to that rule we created, the area is simply equal to width times length, or length times width. Length times width. What do we get? So I'm going to just write this as area. I'm going to keep the equal sign here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the length with 8 meters here. For this rectangle, this will work. And our width here is going to be 5 meters. So the answer to this is area equals 8 times 5, which is 40. And remember, when we're talking about area, we're talking about a square shape. So if the units we're using are meters, then therefore this will be meters squared.